She wasn't ugly or boring. She had her delicate features, a good conversationalist, and a diploma on the wall. But there she was, sitting at a cafe table, venting to her friend for the third time that week. "I think I've been used again." Her look conveyed frustration, but also something deeper. A contained anger, not at him, but at herself. And this scene, repeated in millions of variations, reveals a truth as uncomfortable as it is undeniable. In the age of excess, the value has shifted. The woman who believes she still trades sex for commitment doesn't realize that the currency has already changed. The game has changed. And what's shocking is not the change itself, but the fact that many still pretend not to know it. They pretend they can deliver the minimum, demand the maximum, and come off as victims when the result doesn't come. They pretend they can choose, but they refuse to be chosen by the actual process. Here's the cold hard truth. If you want access to the top, to the desired man, to the rare commitment, you're going to have to pay. Not with the body, but with surrender, with discernment, with presence, with strategy. Because yes, being used is inevitable. But what separates the discarded woman from the admired woman is what she does with this use. The problem is not being used. The problem is not knowing it. And even worse, refusing to accept that this dynamic, however cruel it may seem, is the only game in progress. Nietzsche once said, "What is done for love is always beyond good and evil, because love in the end is not fair. It is an unconscious exchange of perceived value, and those who do not want to play are eliminated before the first move." Now, let's understand why the game has already started long before you showed up. She believes she is in control, that she still sets the rules, that she can maintain the illusion of the throne because she offers what men supposedly want most: sex. But what she doesn't see or refuses to accept is that women's dominance over men's desire has collapsed silently, without announcement, without revolution, but with the force of an avalanche. In the past, sex was scarce, sacred, and surrounded by social, cultural, and religious gates. And whoever held the key to sex held the power. But today, access is unrestricted. It's just a click away, a direct message away, a swipe away. In a world where sex has become abundant, it has lost its value as a bargaining chip. And that changes everything. The woman who still operates according to the old logic is at a disadvantage. She demands exclusivity for something that the market offers in excess. And the result is predictable: frustration, resentment, and the recurring feeling of having been used. But there is an uncomfortable detail here. She was not used. She entered a game without understanding the rules. And, like every naive player, she was led by her own ego. She believed she could demand fidelity for having shared intimacy, that she could guarantee a future for having offered her presence, that she could be chosen simply for being available. But she forgot that an offer without differentiation becomes noise. And the most dangerous thing, she believed that all she had to do was ask him what he wanted. Are you looking for something serious? As if the answer to that question had any real value. She doesn't realize that over the decades, men have learned to lie so as not to be punished. They have learned to answer yes because anything else generates judgment, loss, and rejection. The problem is not just theirs. It's theirs who punish the truth and then complain about being deceived. It's a cycle of mass self-sabotage. But there's something even deeper. This woman forgot that, in the game of desire, the choice was never verbal. The attraction is not rational, it's visceral. And what defines a game is not the player's declared intention, but their consistent actions over time. When a woman asks him what he wants, she's trying to avoid pain. She's trying to assert control. But real control is not in asking. It is in observing, in discerning, in reading between the lines, the behavior, the silence, because that is where the truth lies. And here comes the first blow of reality. You do not control the game just because you have something he wants. He also has what you want. He can also deny it. He can also disappear. He can also use you. And the more you pretend that this does not happen, the more vulnerable you become. The game has already started before you show up. Men have been playing for years. They are testing, observing, learning from each mistake. Meanwhile, many women are still trapped in the fairy tale of the right man who will come along. The problem? The right man does not exist. There is the man who plays well. And if you do not play, you are the piece that will be sacrificed. It is hard to say, but male desire does not bow to goodness, purity, or hope. It responds to fascination, challenge, and perceived value. The woman who understands this begins to play with power. The one who denies it continues to be discarded without understanding why. And the worst part, thinking that the problem is always with men. Now, if the game is no longer about sexual control, then what is the real price of entering and winning in this market? This is where the most brutal part begins. You will be used. The question is whether you will let yourself be used strategically or be discarded without realizing it. Let's talk about that now. You want the most sought-after position in the love market. You want to be chosen by that rare, desired, disciplined man with a leadership presence and vision for the future. You want the top of the romantic hierarchy, the man who moves rooms, controls his reality, and has plenty of options. But here's the truth that no one wants to face. To be promoted in this market, you will be used. This is non-negotiable. Just as no one joins a large company expecting to be a director on the first day, no one wins a high-value man without paying the price. In time, emotional energy, exposure, and above all, vulnerability. Imagine the following scenario. You are hired by a multinational company. In the contract, there is no guarantee that you will be promoted, but still you join. Why? Because the current package is worth it, because there is the possibility, however small, of promotion, and because, deep down, you know that no one owes you anything. That recognition comes after work. That respect is earned, not demanded. In the professional field, this is clear. But when it comes to seduction, many women act as if the simple act of being there is enough to deserve everything. They want to be valued without generating value. They demand loyalty before proving consistency. They complain about being used when in fact they have barely begun to deliver anything tangible. And here comes the critical point. It is not enough to be willing. You have to be useful. Because in a society where everyone has options, those who do not offer usefulness are ignored. And usefulness in this context is not submission. It is understanding the game. It is knowing when to show affection, when to disappear, when to offer presence, when to create scarcity. It is knowing how to be the woman who contributes to the construction of his reality without seeming desperate for validation. This is called strategic value. And strategic value only exists when you allow yourself to be used consciously. Being used here does not mean being exploited. It means understanding that you are delivering something, time, energy, affection, emotional support, before having guarantees. Because guarantees do not exist, and those who wait for a contract before taking action will never be promoted. Yes, there is risk. As in any high-performance game, you can give and not receive. You can give and be ignored. You can do everything right and still not be chosen. And do you know what that means? That you are playing in a real environment, not in the fairy tale that was promised to you. In the real world, the CEO is not always the fairest. Sometimes, he simply chooses whoever played the best emotionally, whoever had the right timing, whoever knew how to use the right cards without seeming desperate for approval. And here comes a point that destroys many. They do not understand that value is only perceived after delivery. Just as an employee proves their competence before their salary increases, you need to show your impact before being considered irreplaceable. The woman who refuses to give of herself for fear of being used will never be seen as valuable. Because value, in this context, is directly linked to delivery. The woman who understands this plays masterfully. She knows when to keep quiet, when to show up, when to be a solution, and when to be a mystery. She delivers value before demanding anything in return. And so she is remembered, she is promoted, she is respected. Meanwhile, the woman who spends all her time protecting herself, asking him what he wants, checking if she is safe, never even makes it to the final interview. She is forgotten. And it is curious to see how men have already internalized this. Ask any average man if he feels he has been used by a woman, and he will laugh. Of course he has, at least once. Because men know that sexual access costs resources, time, money, energy. They accept this because they understand that it is part of the game. They make themselves useful before they are desired. They have learned to offer before expecting anything in return. Most women have not. They are still stuck in the logic of, I am the prize. But they are not. Not anymore. The market has changed. And what is more, those who refuse to be used, thinking that this will elevate them morally, are condemned to irrelevance. Because, deep down, everything that is not used becomes useless. Beauty that is not put into play becomes scenery. Intelligence that is not applied becomes arrogance. A presence that is not useful becomes a burden. Being used in this new world is the price of usefulness. And usefulness is what defines value in the market. The philosopher Ortega y Gasset said that the combination of fascination and surrender is the essence of true love. Being used is exactly that, surrendering to the game before being sure of the reward. But this surrender is not passivity. It is power in disguise. It is strategy wrapped in surrender, because those who surrender consciously dominate. Those who protect themselves too much disappear, and those who don't play don't even enter the game. She goes unnoticed. Not because she is invisible to the eye, but because her stance makes her irrelevant. She always has a ready-made speech full of demands, standards, and prerequisites that no one asked for. She says she wants a man who respects her, who admires her, who treats her as a priority. But she refuses to understand the real cost of being a priority in someone's life. She thinks that value is something that is declared, not something that is built. And so she lives on the sidelines, watching the game unfold, but never really participating in it. The woman who refuses to be used, who puts her energy into protecting herself instead of surrendering herself, chooses, even without knowing it, the path of invisibility. The world does not revolve around justice. It revolves around usefulness. And what has no function, what does not move, what does not offer risk or effort, is ignored. In all spheres of life, social, professional, emotional, this is the hidden rule that governs value. She believes she is preserving herself, when in fact she is distancing herself from everything she desires. She is waiting to be recognized for who she is, but she doesn't show herself. She hopes to be chosen, but she doesn't give in to the process that leads to that choice. She wants love, but she fears vulnerability. She wants connection, but she avoids exposure. And in this confusing dance between wanting and not allowing, she slowly disappears. Life doesn't reward those who avoid pain. It rewards those who face it, those who put themselves out there, those who take risks. In a market where sex is no longer a strong currency, what's left is strategic emotional surrender. The willingness to show oneself useful before being validated. To run the risk of being used to prove that one has value beyond appearance, beyond posing, beyond the script. The woman who doesn't allow herself to be used, who rejects the logic of the game, may even keep her morals intact, but she will live in silence, watching others take the space she believed she deserved. Because in the end, it's not about deserving, it's about movement. It's about who dares to play. Even without guarantees, even with fear. You can choose not to be used. Of course you can, but be prepared to not be wanted either. And if that seems harsh, that's because it is. But the game has never been kind. It has always been brutal, and only those who understand this play well. If you understand, then now you know. Either you surrender, or you disappear. Share this video with someone who still thinks they can win without playing. Because maybe that person needs to wake up before they are completely erased.